I accepted the challenge issued by Raise the Rates to tell a story, a powerful story of 500,000 people of BC living in poverty. As a father of 2 young children, it's hard for me to imagine that we have 137,000 children living in poverty in this beautiful province of British Columbia. It is hard for me to believe that we have 70,000 people visiting Food Bank every month, and 1/3 of them are children. It's hard for me to believe that the gap between the rich and the poor has widened to the point that the top 10% BC families are now making significantly more than the entire 50% families at the bottom. We have a wealthy province and we can do better. People of British Columbia want us to do better. So every day I'm trying to tell that story one by one. Today I came to the food bank to understand who are the people who come here to get a hamper, and to understand the dedication and commitment of the volunteers who come here every day to support the most vulnerable, needy people in the province. Hello.
How are you doing? Diane? Yes. You see the register?
I saw it on the...
Okay.
Stand in front of me. I'm not.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming. My name is Bill Hopwood. I'm with Raise the Rates. We're the people who issued the challenge to all the MLAs in British Columbia to step forward and spend a month living on welfare, which Jagrup Brar did. And he's, I think, discovering how hard it is to live on welfare and finding out the real experiences of what it's like to live in poverty in British Columbia, to live in what is the best place on earth, except it is 500,000 people living in poverty. First of all, I'd like to thank the Surrey Food Bank, the staff and the volunteers for today, for spending time with your group to give them the experiences, but also what they do every day in trying to help some of the poor people in British Columbia, people who struggle to get enough food for themselves and for their children. So they do a great job in difficult circumstances. I'd just like to remind everybody that food banks were established 30 years ago in British Columbia as a temporary measure. And as Marilyn will say, they're probably busier now than they have ever been. And in my book, and I suspect in most people's book, 30 years is not temporary. Unfortunately, it has become part of the fabric almost of our society that people are forced to rely on food banks here in British Columbia, a very rich province. And we need to look at ways so that we can reduce people's reliance on food banks. That's in no way to diminish the work that the food banks do here in Surrey and the rest of British Columbia. And I'm sure most of the people who are involved in food banks would prefer a province where they could do other things to help humanity. But unfortunately, they now are a necessity. People need them to get by, to feed their children. And they're filling a gap in our society created by poverty wages, by poverty welfare, by poverty pensions. And people need them now. But we want to look to a society where people don't have to get by on food banks, which is why Raise the Rates is campaigning as part of your group's experience to raise welfare, to raise the minimum wage, so people can live in dignity. One of our dreams is that people will have justice so that they will no longer have to rely on charity. So I ask Marilyn to come up and say a few words. Marilyn's the Executive Director of Surrey Food Bank. Thank you again, Marilyn.
You're welcome, Bill. This is a man I admire very much.
This is a man who has this morning had firsthand the experience of what it means to come to a food bank and to receive what we have. We give what we get, we give what we have, we give what we can afford to buy. And as much as I'm proud of the work that we as an organization do, I wish we were not here. Jagrup also had the opportunity to go and volunteer, and I'm going to look forward to hearing about what he felt and saw as he delivered hampers to people's homes, people who I call the quiet, those living quietly in poverty. You don't see them on the street, you may not even see them in the stores, but people who are dealing day to day with not having enough. And I want to thank you for doing what you've done, for what you're living right now, because I truly believe you are going to change people's way of thinking. You're going to raise awareness of issues that most people don't want to think about. And we have to think about it. So thank you for what you're doing.
I have been here since 9 o'clock. I did help inside to organize the food, and then I went out to deliver hampers to the people who are elderly, disabled, and frail, who are unable to come to food bank to receive their hamper. There is a myth out there that people who use food bank, they live one corner of the city. I found today that myth is wrong. People who come here come from every part of the city, including the most wealthy area of the city, Panorama and Morgan Creek. That's what I found. So that myth is wrong. There's also a myth out there, the people who use food bank, they are the people who don't want to work. And I found today that that myth is wrong. I found today that 10% people who come here, they're actually working today. They're actually working today, but they cannot put the food at the table for their children with the salary they make every month. I found today that about 10% people who come here are our seniors who dedicated their entire life for this country to build this beautiful country for us and our future generations. They come here because they are on fixed income and they cannot live a life of dignity and respect with that money they receive under the pension. I also saw today that 1/3 of people who come here, they are children. They are children, they are very vulnerable children who has to come here. And I cannot imagine for a second a mother who come here with her children and stand in that line to receive a hamper. It is very, very difficult position to be in for someone, and particularly a mother. So, as Marilyn said at the beginning, imagine for a second that 30 years ago we said that we are going to open the food bank and it is only a temporary solution. And after 30 years what we saw, there are more and more and more food banks in this province opening. Clearly we have failed to put brakes on the growing poverty. We have to do something. And that's why I am trying to tell that story of the people of British Columbia. And I do have a goal, I do have a dream. My goal is that we have to start somewhere. We cannot afford not to do anything. We cannot live with the status quo, what we have in the province today. We have to take actions. We have to show leadership in this province, and we have to start somewhere. And in my opinion, the starting point is to build a comprehensive poverty reduction plan with clear targets and timelines. That is the starting point I think we need to start. And I also want to say that about significant percentage of people who come here, they are on income assistance. And clearly, they cannot survive on the money they get under the income assistance. That also I found today here at the food bank. So with that, I would like to say thank you very much to Marilyn once again, volunteers, and Peter Peter, who does volunteer work here, who took me around today to deliver the hampers. So nice of him. Using his time in his retirement, giving back to the community. So thanks once again, and thanks to Raise the Rates, and thanks to Marilyn.
Well, thank you, Jagrup, very much for your words and what you're doing. On the wall over there, Marilyn has a map of Surrey and where the people who use the food banks come from, which illustrates what Jagrup was saying about
See it. I just want you to show this.
the myth of
This is the myth I was talking about. These brown and blue dots, they are not dots, they are human beings.
I'll let you talk to media.
So Marilyn, do you want to come up here and join us?